that offers advice to Parliament and journalists. Hello and good evening to you. I mean, it was really striking, I thought, listening to Antonio Guterres at the start of the day. Did he hit the nail on the head? It was pretty doom-laden, but was he accurate to point out everything he did, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, what he said, we have known for a very long time. We've known that the choice that's facing humanity is to act on this or to face ever worsening climate impacts and eventually, parts of the planet becoming unlivable. We've known that for a long time. It becomes starker, particularly this year, because we're seeing much worse climate impacts. We saw a third of Pakistan underwater. We've seen record temperatures in almost all parts of the world, including, again, in the UK. And of course, the other reason it's become starker this year is because the world has become a much more dangerous place for lots of other reasons as well. We've got Russia's war against Ukraine, we've got a food crisis, we've got an energy crisis. And the fact is that all of these crises are linked. A lot of people refer to it as a polycrisis. And it's good that leaders, so many leaders, are here in Sharm el-Sheikh, because actually the solutions to the climate crisis that leaders will be talking about here are the solutions to all of those other crises as well, to bringing down the cost of energy, to cutting off the funding for Putin's war machine, and for securing our food future.
OK, and that all makes sense. But is it going to happen? If Antonio Guterres says nothing has really been achieved since Glasgow, what can happen there, where you are, over the next few days that will galvanise and that action will happen?
Well, there's a lot that happens outside of the COPs because of the decisions that are made here, and I think the Paris Agreement in 2015 started a real momentum on climate action that Glasgow actually propelled forward further. And actually, we're seeing stuff happening out there in the real world that isn't necessarily reflected in targets. So we've not had new targets yet this year from the European Union, the United States or China. That's three of the world's biggest emitters. But what we see in all three of those big economies is huge momentum on climate solutions. So you've got the US committing $500 billion to climate action. You've got China building more renewable. The offshore wind that they built in 2021 was the equivalent to the amount that was built in the whole over the previous 5 years. So they're building renewables at a phenomenal rate. And ironically, Vladimir Putin cutting off gas to Europe. Putin's never been a one for climate action particularly, but ironically, he's speeding up the push to net zero in Europe as they race to get off Russian gas and turbocharge their adoption of renewables. So there are a lot of very good things happening out there in the real world, driven by markets, driven by sensible decisions by governments to choose cheaper energy technologies rather than fossil fuels, for example. But there are some big issues that need to be resolved here. And the most important one that's facing leaders over the next couple of weeks is the support to developing countries, to climate vulnerable countries who could least afford these devastating impacts.
Interesting to talk to you. Thank you for now. Gareth Redmond-King there from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit.